Before, power comes from within. It is not something the world can hand you, nor is it something you can buy, beg for, or borrow. Real power begins deep inside. Long before anyone else sees it. It is built in the quiet moments when no one is watching, when you choose not to give up, when you decide to believe in yourself, even when the evidence around you suggests otherwise, when you refuse to let the opinions of others define your worth. Many people misunderstand power. They confuse it with external recognition, wealth, or status. But those things are temporary, fragile, and often dependent on forces beyond your control. A woman who stands in her power knows that if all of those things were stripped away, she would still be powerful, because her power is not rooted in possessions or applause. It is rooted in her identity, her values, and her unshakable self-belief. Think about it. For the strongest people in history were not always those with armies or riches. They were people who had an inner certainty that could not be broken. They could walk into a room without saying a word and still shift the energy because their power came from within. That kind of power cannot be faked. Before, you can imitate confidence, but true inner power radiates naturally. For a woman, society often teaches the opposite. From a young age, she is told to look outside for approval, be pretty enough, polite enough, successful enough, liked enough. For the measure of her worth is often placed in the hands of others. But when she finally realizes that her power was never in their hands to begin with, everything changes. She no longer lives to meet expectations. She sets her own. She no longer waits for permission. She gives it to herself. The journey to inner power is not about perfection. In fact, it is often the opposite. Power comes from embracing imperfection. From understanding that mistakes do not disqualify you. They refine you. Every failure is a lesson, every setback a teacher. When a woman stops hiding her scars and starts wearing them as evidence of survival, she becomes untouchable. People can criticize her, but they cannot shake her. They can doubt her, but they cannot define her. Inner power is also about alignment. When your actions match your values, you walk with a different level of confidence. You do not have to pretend. You do not have to perform. You do not have to exhaust yourself trying to be everything to everyone. You simply stand as yourself unapologetically, and that authenticity becomes magnetic. People are drawn to it because it is rare in a world full of masks. A woman who discovers that her power comes from within no longer seeks constant validation. She still welcomes love, appreciation, and connection, but she does not depend on them to feel whole. Her sense of worth is anchored too deeply to be shaken by someone's approval or rejection. She is free to give generously, lead boldly, and live fully because she knows her power is secure. And here is the most beautiful part. When a woman lives in that truth, she inspires others to do the same. Her power is not about domination or control. It is about illumination. She becomes a reminder to every other woman that they too, have everything they need within themselves, that the strength they are searching for has been there all along, waiting to be claimed. So when we say power comes from within, it is more than a phrase. It is a call to stop looking outside for what has always been inside. It is a reminder that you are not waiting to be crowned, chosen, or approved. You already carry the crown within you. The only question is whether you are ready to wear it. Strength is not something you are born with fully formed. It is not handed to you in a neat package, nor is it something you acquire in moments of comfort and ease. Strength is forged piece by piece in the heat of struggle. Every challenge you face, every setback that knocks you down, every rejection that stings your pride and every failure that forces you to question yourself, all of these are the raw materials that build true resilience. Without struggle, strength would have no reason to exist. It is only when life pushes you to your limits that you discover what you are truly made of. Think about it. No one becomes strong by avoiding difficulty. Muscles do not grow without resistance. Diamonds are not formed without immense pressure. Trees do not grow deep roots unless they are forced to stand tall against the wind. In the same way, a woman does not step into her power by living a life free of trials. She becomes powerful because she endured, because she survived and because she refused to let struggle define her as weak. When you are in the middle of hardship, it rarely feels like growth. It feels like chaos. It feels like pain. It feels like the weight of the world pressing down on your chest. You might wonder if you are capable of carrying it, if you are strong enough to keep going, or if it would be easier to quit. And yet, every time you choose to take one more step forward before, every time you rise after falling, you are building strength you cannot yet see. Struggle stretches you beyond your current capacity, forcing you to adapt, to think differently, to become resourceful in ways you never imagined. The beauty of struggle is that it shapes you in silence. Often before, people do not realize how strong they are until they look back and see the mountain they have climbed. What once felt unbearable becomes the very proof that they are unbreakable. The wounds that once ached so deeply turn into scars, and those scars tell stories not of defeat, but of victory. They are the evidence that pain did not win. They are the marks of survival. For strength built through struggle is deeper than surface-level toughness. It is not about pretending that you do not feel hurt or putting on a mask of invincibility. For true strength is about standing in your authenticity even when it is uncomfortable. It is about acknowledging fear but refusing to let it control you. It is about embracing failure as part of the journey and understanding that every mistake carries within it a lesson that will make you stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the road ahead. There is also a quiet confidence that emerges from struggle. For when you have walked through the fire and come out on the other side, you no longer need external validation to prove your worth. You know you can survive. Before, you know you can rebuild. You know that no matter what life throws at you, you have the resilience to keep moving forward. That kind of strength cannot be faked and it cannot be given. It must be earned. So when struggle comes, do not see it as a punishment. See it as a teacher. For each obstacle is shaping you into the woman who can carry her dreams, who can lead, who can stand tall in her power. Struggle may test you before, but it is also building you into the kind of person who no longer crumbles under pressure, but rises because of it. And when you finally step into that strength you will understand that the very moments that once broke you down were the same moments that built you up. That is the paradox of struggle. It hurts but it also heals, it breaks, but it also rebuilds. And in the end, it leaves you unshakable. When a woman truly stands in her power, she doesn't need to make announcements or demand attention. Her presence alone is enough to shift the energy of a room. This is because presence speaks louder than words. It is the silent force that communicates confidence, worth, and authenticity without uttering a single sentence. When someone walks in carrying the weight of self-assurance, people can sense it immediately. They feel it in the way she carries herself, the steadiness of her gaze, the calmness in her movements. Words may inspire, but presence convinces. Presence is not about being the loudest voice or commanding through fear. It is about embodying a state of certainty that others cannot ignore. Think about the people you've met who never had to boast about their achievements, yet everyone around them knew they were remarkable. Their quiet strength spoke volumes. That's the kind of power presence holds. It is subtle yet undeniable. A woman who owns her presence does not need to remind anyone of her value. Her self-respect and composure do that for her. This type of presence comes from alignment between who you are and how you show up. It comes from deeply knowing your worth and refusing to settle for less than you deserve. A woman who doubts herself fidgets, apologizes unnecessarily, and shrinks when challenged. But a woman who has claimed her power stands tall, makes eye contact, and responds with calm certainty. She doesn't have to over-explain or justify her choices because her presence communicates that she is grounded in her truth. The beauty of presence is that it transcends appearances. It isn't about expensive clothes, perfect makeup, or an impressive title. Those things may attract attention temporarily, but they cannot sustain respect. True presence is felt, not seen. It is born from inner work, overcoming fears, healing from wounds, and embracing authenticity. It is magnetic because it resonates with something deeper in others. People feel safe around someone whose presence is steady. They feel inspired by someone whose energy reflects confidence without arrogance. When a woman's presence is strong, her words become more impactful. Even if she speaks softly, people lean in to listen. Her silence even carries weight because others are curious about what she might say next. Contrast this with someone who speaks endlessly but lacks conviction. Their words fade quickly, forgotten as soon as they're spoken. This shows that presence is not just about what you say, but about the energy behind it. Presence also sets boundaries without confrontation. A woman who values herself doesn't have to shout no. The way she carries herself makes it clear that disrespect will not be tolerated. 4. She teaches others how to treat her not by long speeches, but by the quiet power of her actions and demeanor. 4. This is why presence often protects a woman from being taken for granted. People know instinctively, 4, that she cannot be manipulated because she is grounded in self-awareness. At its core, presence is about authenticity. Pretending, performing, or pleasing others creates a fragile kind of influence. But being unapologetically yourself, comfortable in your own skin, creates a presence that cannot be shaken. That is what makes it louder than words. Words can be doubted, but presence is undeniable. Words can be forgotten, but presence lingers. People may not remember everything you said, but they will always remember how your presence made them feel. And so, for a woman who cultivates presence understands her greatest power lies not in convincing others with arguments, but in embodying her truth so fully that she becomes unshakable. She doesn't chase approval. She doesn't beg for acceptance. She simply is, and in her being, 4, she commands the respect, love, and opportunities she deserves. Presence speaks louder than words because it is the purest expression of power, the kind that cannot be faked, cannot be stolen, and cannot be ignored. Balance is one of the greatest forms of power, yet it is often misunderstood. Many people assume that to be powerful, one must be loud, aggressive, or constantly in control. Others believe that being soft, kind, and understanding means weakness. But real strength is found in the ability to hold both qualities at once, to be firm without being cruel, to be kind without being taken advantage of, and to be ambitious without apology. Balance is not about choosing one side over the other, but about knowing when to lean into strength and when to lean into softness. It is about harmony, not extremes. A woman who embodies balance has something rare and magnetic about her. She can lead a room with confidence while also making space for others to shine. She can stand her ground in a negotiation without losing her humanity. She can love deeply without losing herself in the process. This balance is what makes her power undeniable because it shows she is not driven by fear, insecurity, or the need to prove herself. Instead, she operates from a place of certainty. She knows who she is, and that is unshakable. When balance is missing, life feels unstable. If a woman leans too far into her toughness, she risks closing herself off from connection, compassion, and vulnerability. She may achieve success, but it will often come at the cost of relationships or inner peace. On the other hand, if she leans too far into softness, she risks losing her boundaries, her voice, and her identity. She may be liked by many but respected by few. That is why balance is not just desirable, it is essential. It is the key that allows a woman to thrive in every area of life without sacrificing one part of herself for another. Balance in power also teaches adaptability. Life is never constant, and neither are people. There will be moments that require her to stand firm, protect her values, and say no with conviction. There will also be moments that require her to listen, to empathize, and to extend grace when others fall short. A powerful woman knows how to discern which version of her strength to call upon. She is not rigid, but she is not easily swayed either. She bends without breaking. And that makes her unstoppable. This kind of balance creates trust. People naturally gravitate toward women who embody it because they feel both safe and inspired in her presence. She is not unpredictable or ruled by extremes. She is consistent, steady, and grounded. Others can sense that she is strong enough to lead but humble enough to listen. That combination is rare. And it is why balance is one of the most valuable expressions of power. Perhaps the most beautiful part of balance is that it allows a woman to be fully herself. She does not have to choose between strength and softness, between ambition and love, between logic and emotion. She can embrace all sides of her nature and know that none of them make her less worthy. In fact, it is the union of these qualities that makes her complete. She is not trying to fit into someone else's definition of power. She is writing her own. At the end of the day, balance is not about perfection. It is about awareness and intention. It is about knowing when to push forward and when to pause, when to speak and when to listen, or when to stand alone and when to lean on others. That awareness is what gives a woman unshakable confidence. She does not have to prove herself because her actions before her presence and her choices already do. Balance is not the absence of struggle, but the mastery of it. And when a woman finds that balance, she becomes a force the world cannot ignore. When a woman truly stands in her power, something remarkable begins to happen. Her entire environment starts to shift. before. The way people treat her, the opportunities that come her way, and even the energy of the spaces she enters begin to change. Power is magnetic, for it has a presence that cannot be ignored, and when a woman steps into hers fully, the ripple effect touches every corner of her life. Relationships are often the first place where this transformation becomes visible. People who once underestimated her may suddenly find themselves adjusting their tone, recognizing the confidence she carries. 4. Those who once took her for granted begin to realize that she is no longer someone who will settle for less than she deserves. She is not driven by ego, but by a quiet and unwavering self-respect. The dynamics of friendships, partnerships, and even professional connections shift because she no longer entertains the roles that kept her small. 4. The woman who once said yes to please others learns to say no without guilt. She sets boundaries, and in doing so, 4. Filters out those who drain her energy and makes room for people who value, honor, and uplift her. But this shift isn't always easy. Before, standing in power often exposes relationships that were never built on mutual respect. Some friends may drift away, partners may resist the change. Before, colleagues may feel threatened. At first, this can feel like loss, yet in reality, it is alignment. Before, the people who belong in her life are the ones who celebrate her strength, not fear it. The ones who grow alongside her, not against her. By stepping into her power, 4, she doesn't push others away. She simply creates space for the right ones to rise with her. Beyond relationships, 4, opportunities start to open up in ways that may once have seemed impossible. A woman in her power carries herself differently. She enters a room with presence. Before, she speaks with clarity. She doesn't ask for permission to be seen or heard. She assumes her place at the table because she knows she has earned it. This confidence is not arrogance, it is certainty, and certainty is attractive to leaders, collaborators, and visionaries. Doors that were once closed begin to open. People want to work with her, invest in her, support her, because power draws possibility. Opportunities also shift because she no longer fears pursuing them. 4, she doesn't wait for the perfect timing, the right conditions, or someone's approval. She acts, she trusts her instincts. She knows her voice matters. 4, her ideas have value and her vision deserves space in the world. And so she applies for positions others told her were out of reach. 4, she pitches her business idea with confidence. She says yes to stages, to challenges, to risks that once felt overwhelming. The moment she stopped doubting herself, 4, the world stopped doubting her too. What's even more powerful is that this transformation is not limited to her alone. By standing tall, 4, she becomes a model of possibility for others. Younger women look at her and realize they don't have to shrink to be accepted. 4, colleagues see her unapologetic presence and begin to embrace their own. 4, communities benefit because one woman's power has the capacity to ignite courage in countless others. The truth is, power is not just about personal gain. It's about creating a shift in the collective energy of the spaces we live and work in. When a woman stands in her power, relationships grow stronger and more authentic, opportunities multiply, and a cycle of empowerment begins. What changes is not only her life before, but the lives of everyone touched by the light she refuses to dim. Empowerment is contagious. When one woman decides to rise, 4, something shifts not only in her own life, but in the lives of the people watching her. 4, the energy of someone who fully embraces her power radiates beyond her personal journey. It inspires others, sometimes silently, 4, to reconsider their own limits and possibilities. Just as a single candle can light another without losing its flame, before, a woman who stands tall in her strength gives others the courage to ignite their own. Think about it when you see someone who refuses to shrink, before, who speaks with conviction, who chooses not to apologize for existing as her full self. It changes something in you. 4, it challenges the quiet voices of doubt that whisper in your own head. You begin to wonder, if she can do it, why not me? That is the ripple effect of empowerment. It spreads, it multiplies, and it transforms communities. This is why representation matters. For so long, many women have been told to stay quiet, to be agreeable, to not disrupt the peace by asking for too much. But the moment one woman breaks that pattern, before, she shows others that the boundaries weren't real in the first place. They were just limits handed down by fear or tradition. 4, when a young girl sees a woman owning her story, walking into a room without shrinking, creating opportunities instead of waiting for them, she begins to rewrite the script for her own life. Empowerment doesn't require speeches or grand gestures. Often, For it's the simple act of showing up authentically that sparks a change in others. Before, a mother who chooses to pursue her dreams while raising children teaches her daughters and sons that responsibility and ambition can coexist. For a leader who stands firm in her values shows her team that integrity is stronger than pressure. Before, a friend who leaves a toxic relationship reminds those around her that self-worth is non-negotiable. These acts might seem personal before, but they carry an invisible influence that shapes the choices of everyone who witnesses them. And the beauty of empowerment is that it doesn't subtract, it multiplies. When one woman rises, she doesn't block the path for others. Instead, she opens doors, creates possibilities, and lights the way. Her success does not diminish anyone else's. It expands the horizon for everyone. Empowerment is abundant, and when it is shared, it grows stronger. Of course, not everyone will celebrate a woman stepping into her power. Some will feel threatened, some will resist before, and some will walk away. But even that is part of the ripple. Those who are ready to grow will lean closer. Those who are not will fade. Either way, before, the woman standing in her power continues to influence simply by existing fully as herself. This is the truth. Empowerment is never just about the individual. It always carries a collective impact. A single act of courage can inspire dozens of others, who in turn will spark hundreds more. One woman's decision to rise has the potential to shift families, workplaces, communities, and even generations. That is why empowerment is contagious, because it cannot be contained. Once it is released, it spreads like fire, unstoppable and illuminating everything it touches. So when a woman stands in her power, she does far more than change her own life. She gives silent permission for others to rise, to speak, to dream, to take up space without apology. And in doing so, she becomes not just a leader of her own journey but a catalyst for transformation in the lives of countless others. That is the true legacy of empowerment. It multiplies endlessly.